C5 Insight is a Microsoft partner that plans, builds, and supports solutions in Dynamics 365, Teams, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. Contact us to modernize your business today.
And welcome back for everybody that is watching either the recording or our live session today. If you were in our session last week, you know we covered Copilot for sales collaboration with Outlook and the many different ways you can integrate those two. And today we're going to be switching over to a different one of our great productivity apps and moving from Outlook into Teams and the many ways that you can integrate Copilot and Copilot for sales throughout your whole sales process within Teams. And what you see here is the agenda we're going to be going through to highlight just that. So we're going to be starting today with going over just some general hygiene tips and best habits for you to use when you are either just brand new to Copilot and really starting to get introduced to Copilot for sales, or maybe you already have your feet wet a little bit, you were in last week's session. We'll be taking a look at some tips specifically when it comes to that Teams integration and the ways that you're going to get the most out of both applications here. Then we're going to kind of go through a full sales journey together, starting with some prep for our week and our meetings that we have coming up, taking that prep directly into our sales meetings and our post-meeting recap and support. And finally, taking a look at how we can use Teams to collaborate both internally and externally with our clients after we had all of our meetings and we got an approved deal on the books. And like Haley mentioned, we will be wrapping up with a roundtable. We have about 45 minutes of content with 15 minutes of roundtable at the end. So put your questions in and stick around to go through some discussion with us after we cover all the content. So we're going to kick things off, like we said, around hygiene tips and best habits when it comes to Copilot for sales and the integration with Teams to help with your sales process. Want to call out the subtitle you see here of the get out what you put in. This is something that we say all the time when it comes to Copilot, is that it could be an absolutely fantastic assistant for you in your day-to-day, whether it's sales or otherwise. But you're really only going to be able to get that top tier answers and support out of Copilot if that's the information that you're providing. So that's what we're going to be covering some in this session, in the first part of the session. And we're going to kick things off with just getting our mindset around why we're covering this information and why some of these habits and best practices are going to be very important to your day-to-day as a salesperson. So I'm not sure if this quote appears resonating with you all. I know I've definitely been in this situation many times before through my career. And that just with this research that's been published, up to 70% of salespeople are not sufficiently prepared for their meetings. Whether that's they're aware of that or not, that's a very large amount. More than a majority of people are going into their meetings ill-prepared or not prepared enough for the conversations they're going to be having with their clients or prospects. And overall, when looking at that 70%, I guess the 30%, the opposite side of that, the people that are going in and are as prepared as possible can sometimes spend as much as 4 hours per meeting putting together the decks, the company research, the conversation surrounding the meeting time. There's a lot that has to go into that process that is normally quite manual and takes up a lot of time that can, and hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll be able to see how it can be redirected so you can make better use of that time and make sure that everything that you're doing for those meetings is for the benefit of the hopefully close sale that you're going to be getting to by the end of your conversations. So we're going to be looking first at a couple kind of housekeeping tips, I guess I would call it, when it comes to using Copilot that's going to make it so you're going to get the most out of what you put in. Starting with just this in with the new idea. Copilot, as I'm sure you know if you're attending the session, if you've been following the conversations around the tool since the beginning of the year, it is something that is rapidly evolving, changing all the time, constantly getting brand new features to enhance the experience of Copilot and the integration across the many apps that it's in. But what that means is that you should be on the newer version of those applications if you want to take advantage of those new features. So when we look across the board, all of these different things we'll be touching on a little bit either today or in the remaining sessions that we have over the next couple weeks. But wanting to make sure that inside of Outlook, inside of Dynamics, inside of Teams, and even just your Windows updates and M365 apps itself, that all of those are either the most up-to-date versions of them, or like the first couple that are listed here, you have manually gone in and flipped the switch to go to the new version of those tools. You are going to have some capability of Copilot even in the older version of a lot of these, but again, Copilot is rapidly evolving, and you want to make sure that you're staying ahead of that curve and being able to be on the platform that's going to allow you to experiment with these new features and work them into your day-to-day as quickly and seamlessly as possible is going to be ideal. And with the last little bullet here, before we look at a couple of those hygiene habits to make sure that everything that you're putting in is as accurate as possible, do you want to touch on that feedback part? I'm sure you guys are very well aware, as we are, that sometimes being on those newer versions of the tools like Outlook, of Teams, means that there might be a couple of small bugs here and there that aren't fully worked out and get in the way of some of the essential tasks that you have on the regular basis. So I wanted to just highlight where you are able to provide that feedback directly to Microsoft. You can see the snippet here under the help section in your Outlook directly, and you can find similar across the different applications. If you have to be in the new Outlook and something isn't working the way that you were hoping it would or that it was working before, these feedback options do send that information and that feedback directly to the product teams. So you can feel rest assured that even if something might not look exactly the way it did before or might not be working the way that it did previously and you depend on that, that you have a lifeline directly to the product teams, making sure that you can stay confident in the new versions of these applications to fully utilize Copilot for Sales without getting bogged down by something that might not be working as well as it maybe did before. So with some of those housekeeping tips covered, let's take a look at how you can get the most out of using Copilot for Sales directly inside of Teams. So like we started this with, it's all about what you put in. So we're going to watch a demo together here and then cover a little bit about the different ways that you can properly set up that information. We're going to go through how to properly track the meetings and the communication around them from Outlook to Teams, so that way Copilot's able to interact with that in the most accurate way. So let's go ahead and watch that.
From Contoso. I'm working through my email list and come to this email from Allie Jameson from Contoso. This looks like a great opportunity to bring a lot of value to a prospect and engage directly with some decision makers. So I'll start by scheduling a meeting using the Reply with Meeting feature built right into Outlook. And I'll select a time and then open it in Copilot. I can see that all of the participants in the meeting are already in CRM, but if they weren't, I could add them from here just like I could from an email message. I always make sure to add the meeting to CRM using Copilot. There's already an opportunity in CRM for this record, so it's easy to save it to that. This puts all the important information into CRM. Data like this makes Copilot even more helpful. And it sets me up to run a more productive meeting when the time comes using Copilot. While I'm here, I see that Allie Jameson is probably the decision maker on this opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the opportunity record right here in Outlook to make that change. When sending a meeting invitation, it's a good idea to include a note and to suggest an agenda to include within the meeting body. There are a lot of places I can ask Copilot to help me with this. I'm going to go to my office.com homepage in this case and click on the Copilot logo. This and Teams chat are great places for general chats with Copilot. I'm going to ask it to create a description field for the meeting. Notice that I can use the / to open a searchable browser to find files, emails, meetings, and more. I'll enter Contoso to find the email I'm looking for. And Copilot builds my meeting description for me. Notice that this chat gets added to the list of Copilot chats, so I can reference it in the future, or I can delete it if I prefer. Now I'll just use the copy button and paste it into the meeting and send off the meeting invitation.
Great. So wanted to start there. So you can see the seamless connection between the activity that you're doing inside of Teams, inside of Outlook, directly tied in with your sales CRM records. So like was mentioned in that video, thankfully, because we had accurate records inside of our dynamic CRM, we were instantly able to see all of the contacts that were listed under that account that the email was tied to. It automatically showed us some other sales records, like current opportunities that we had going on with that client, and some different ways that we can communicate and summarize the information we've already shared with them. And because of the fact that it was put in accurately and we were able to track things efficiently across multiple apps, we were able to move from Outlook to use Copilot for Sales, bring that over to Teams, back into Outlook, and that was all done seamlessly with just a couple clicks and having all of those records saved across the board. So a good frame of mind to be in as we go through a lot of the features we're going to be covering today is if the foundation is laid correctly, if you're giving it the best, most accurate information from the start, it's going to mean that Copilot's going to be able to do a lot more heavy lifting and keep that seamless experience no matter which app you're moving your information between. And one more kind of housekeeping feature to highlight before we take a look at the full meeting prep and meeting support and post-meeting recaps is what if you can't make that meeting? You know, everybody has a busy calendar, a lot of different people sending requests, a lot of different types of internal and external communication going on. And sometimes you can't attend everything that you might want to, or it might be required to, whether it's a different meeting at that time, you're not in that day, whatever it might be. There's a new Copilot feature called Follow the Meeting. We are going to watch a demo video in here from Microsoft directly, actually, highlighting what this feature does, but allows you to take advantage of all of these different features we're going to be going over today, even if you were not able to be in that meeting because of prior conflicts. So let's take a look at this demo.
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here, you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with another meeting you're already attending. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with Follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like, summarize this meeting, or, are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting.
So, pretty easy there, but a very extremely helpful feature for you to keep in mind as we go through all of the stuff we're going to be covering today. So that whether you can be there or not, Copilot's still there for you. Not only is it going to remind the person organizing that meeting that you can't be there, so the recording, transcription, and note-taking is going to be very important for them to make sure to capture. But all of the great post-meeting features that we'll be covering in today's session are going to be available to you as well. So that way you can go and interact with the transcript and the data that was covered inside of that call and join the next one without having missed a beat. So, with some of the housekeeping out of the way, the best tips and hygiene habits to have in place to make sure that your Copilot for Sales and Teams integration is going to be working seamlessly and most efficiently for you, let's jump directly into how those features are going to be showing up in the day-to-day for you and hopefully enhancing your conversations and sales process along the way. So we're going to kick things off by preparing for the meetings we have for the week. So there's a lot of different ways to go about this. And today we're going to be focusing into the Copilot chat directly inside of your Teams application right at the top of your ribbon, and how using this, you can essentially have an assistant to your sales process to make sure that not only are all of your tasks being covered, but that you're tackling them in a way that makes sense based on the urgency of those individual meetings and items of preparation you need to do to plan your week out. So let's go ahead and watch this demo together. Together, let's take a look at how we can use Copilot directly inside of Teams to not only catch us up on all of the unread emails inside of our inbox, but also use Copilot as a great assistant to help us organize those tasks to build an agenda for our week. First, I'm going to access the Copilot chat found directly inside of Teams on the left-hand ribbon. And all I'm going to ask it to do is to summarize what I currently have unread in my inbox. We can see here that after just a moment, it was able to give me a summary of some of the unread emails that I have, whether it be upcoming meetings, tasks that are overdue, or Q&A sessions I have coming up with some potential prospects. Now that I have a great summary from Copilot highlighting some of those unread emails in my inbox, I want to take that one step further and use my Copilot assistant here to help me build an agenda so I can tackle these in a way that makes sense with my calendar and the urgency of the requests coming in. All I have to do is give it that new prompt asking to help me organize my tasks that were listed above. And as we can see, after just a couple of moments here, Copilot was able to scan through those different unread emails and tasks that I have to complete and helped me build an agenda to tackle what needed to get done based on how urgent the different messages sounded. Now I have a strong start to my week and I'm able to go about my day in a much more organized fashion. Great, so as we can see there, not only is that chat able to give you some summarization options for what's currently in your inbox, read or unread. But thanks to that tie-in with your CRM records with Copilot for Sales, it's going to be pulling in a lot of that account information as well. So when you start asking it to help you prioritize how to tackle your tasks and build out that agenda that you're going to move forward with through your week for your meetings that you have coming up, it's going to be bringing in the information. And as you saw there, it links all of that directly under the summaries and agendas it's giving you. So you can see the summarized version of that sales data directly inside of the chat. But if you want to get a more in-depth view of that information before you go into that sales meeting you have coming up, you can always click the link to go directly to your sales records inside of Dynamics or wherever you keep them in order to get the full story before you go into that conversation. And I do want to highlight the one other snipping that's up on the screen here outside of this agenda that we're able to build as we're coming in to start our week and tackle our sales process as we go each day, is even before each one of those individual meetings that we just built an agenda for, Copilot for Sales is going to give you a bit of a recap that you need before heading into it. So by default, this is going to be showing up about 15 minutes before your session time. And it's going to include just some important information that you might need to know before you go into the conversation. Like you see here, it'll show you the recent communication you've had with the people that are invited. It's going to show you all the participants in that call, whether they've accepted or not. And the combination of these within Teams is really just going to allow you to go forward with your week and tackle all of your sales meetings and conversations in a way that is very organized and very informed. So that way you always show up as best as possible in front of any clients or prospects that you have. So we started our week. We were able to build an agenda and get our recaps moving for each one of those sales meetings we have coming up throughout that week. But once we're in that meeting, there's a lot we can do with Copilot and Copilot for Sales in order to make sure that we are showing up our best and that our clients are getting the best and most out of the conversation that we're having with them. And to to take a look at some of these things within meetings, I first want to talk about just what meetings look like without Copilot involved, which maybe you're there now. Maybe if you are using Copilot, you were here not too long ago. But going through the process of a meeting and needing to take notes for that meeting that you're in, which obviously is very important when we're discussing sales and discovery and getting to know your clients, note-taking can be quite the pain, to be honest, for a variety of reasons. One, it's super time-consuming. So as you're hearing information, there's going to be pauses. You're going to have to take time away from being actively engaged in the conversation to make sure that every detail and piece of information is being recorded properly in your notes so you don't forget anything as you're building a solution. It detracts that focus from the meeting. So you can think you're as attentive as possible and be trying to be as attentive as possible, but that slight shift of focus from the conversation to the note-taking you need to do does impact the overall conversation and how you're coming across to the person on the other side of that call, which is the perception that you see here, is that it puts a little bit of doubt and makes that conversation just not flow as smooth as it could be if you didn't need to take that time away from engaging. And just at the end of the day, not everybody is a good note taker. If you've been in a sales space for a long time, you probably have seen both really great examples of call notes, and you've probably seen some not so great examples of call notes. And at the end of the day, when we're trying to close sales, trying to advance relationships with our clients and customers, being able to have uniformity in what notes are being taken, what things are being prioritized as important, is going to be make or break sometimes in whether or not those sales end up getting closed in the long run. So let's take a look at a few ways that using Copilot directly inside of your meetings and right after your meetings as well in the post-meeting recaps, that you can really alleviate a lot of this note-taking stress and take it one step further past just note-taking to gain additional insight and information as you go. So to start, we're going to look at the foundation of these features, and it's just the note-taking and transcription being turned on inside of your meetings so that way Copilot can work. So let's watch the demo, and then we'll talk a little bit about the importance of making sure that you're kicking things off correctly.
I have an upcoming call with Paige Cassida, a prospect I met at a conference recently. I've got my opportunity pulled up, and Copilot summarized everything on the right-hand side so I can quickly see the important details. Normally, as I head into the call, I have a OneNote page pulled up and I'm furiously typing notes during the meeting in an effort to capture the conversation and things I need to know while I move forward. But now, I use Copilot to capture the discussion and support during calls. As the meeting has transcription turned on, it's tracking the discussion. Copilot will use this transcription to derive any notes and action items raised throughout the call, so I don't have to frantically take notes myself.
So a quick demo there, but you can see that being able to start by having a full transcription is already alleviating the time and energy you might need to put into note-taking in the moment. But that is just the very beginning of the rather advanced features that we could take a look at when it comes to the different ways that Copilot can interact with that transcript during your call that we're going to jump into in just a second here. But making sure that you're always starting by turning that on is going to allow Copilot to be utilized within the call, like we were talking about before. It is going to give you what you give into it, what you put into it. So we're putting in that transcript, we're giving it the conversation data, so it's going to be able to analyze that and then give us the insight we're looking for. So let's take a look at what that insight can be exactly. So we saw a little bit of our Copilot for Sales panel in that last video when we were inside of Dynamics. You can see your opportunity summary, some account information, just the need to know data that is tied to whatever page we have open inside of Dynamics. But we can bring a lot of those different cards directly into our meeting itself. So that way, as we're in a meeting, again, trying to stay attentive, trying to stay engaged with the conversation that's going on, we don't have to jump over to Dynamics for our sales records. We don't have to jump over to our email to see what communication we might have already sent. All of it's going to be in there with our Copilot for Sales panel. And it's going to give us the ability to not only summarize and see that information, but we're able to chat with that information and get not only recaps information that we'll see here, but additional insight to help you move your sales conversations forward. Let's watch a video showing just that. Link is not pulling up. What we can do, I'll make a note of this, and we can bring up the video when we go into the Q&A towards the end to make sure that that's being covered for anything you might need to see. But we'll walk through what the video was showing and kind of some of the different things that you see up here on the screen to back up that information. So what this in-meeting support demo walkthrough is two people or a handful of people inside of a sales call. And with that Copilot panel open that only you can see what you're putting into it, the attendee of the call was able to ask Copilot who the different other people on the call are and what their roles are. And since the meeting started with introductions, Copilot was able to very quickly and easily give you a summary of who everybody is in the call and what their role is and why it's important to the conversation going on at hand. So really easy to see some summarization aspect there. But there's so much more you can ask Copilot inside of that call setting other than just summarizing. And that's what I have listed here that can really enhance the way that you're having sales conversations and isn't just benefiting the note-taking. So the first one here, recapping the whole meeting, that is really a great thing for the note-taking. You get to the end of maybe a 2-hour, 3-hour call, and you're able to ask Copilot to summarize it, and it'll give you a healthy summary, not only of the conversation, but of any follow-up tasks that need to be done, who's assigned to those tasks, and any go-dos that need to be completed before the next time you guys might meet. But there's so many things that you can bring up as that conversation is going on. So let's say you're, an hour into that 2-hour meeting. You can ask Copilot, I missed what was said about this specific topic. Can you recap just that information to me? So maybe you were multitasking when you ideally shouldn't have been, or maybe your Wi-Fi went out for a second, so you missed a part of the conversation. You can get specifics rather than just a recap of the entire conversation going on. You can ask for what tasks have been assigned to you directly. So that way you can even just copy and paste those, bring those over into your planner, into your to-do, and make sure that those are all getting taken care of. But if you're in a deep sales conversation, maybe you're pitching a solution, maybe you're just trying to have a discovery, better understand your potential client, there's likely going to be some pushback or some objection to what's being talked about, what's being offered. And you can ask Copilot to help you with those parts of the conversation. You can ask it what objections have been raised during this call and how can I address them? So that way, not only is it giving you some recapped information, but it's going to even give you some additional questions you can ask or some additional information from the web that can aid the conversation and hopefully aid the customer ending up on your side of that objection. Or just the other one you see up here, can you provide some insight around whatever industry that client is in that might not directly tie to the opportunity of open, but it's going to make you as a salesperson come across as that much more informed in your conversation with them. And because you are more aware of what's going on with their competitors and within the industry itself. So a lot of different ways you can engage with your Copilot chat directly inside of the meeting as it's happening directly. And those are things that are just continually getting evolved and added onto, like we started this meeting off with. So there were some more advanced in-meeting support features that have been added on throughout the summer. Some of these are just released to the public preview this month in September. So we don't have a video for these, but want to just highlight a couple of these ways that, especially that sales piece, is getting more and more integrated and enhanced with every update that gets rolled through. So starting with just some in-meeting sales info. So that's the snipping that you see over here on the side is we already saw some of the different account summaries and communication summaries that show up as cards inside of our Copilot panel. But there's 2 brand new summary cards that have been introduced to help with the in-meeting sales conversations. And that's being the brand analysis and an opportunity summary. So it's going to give you all the information around the current opportunities that you have open with a client. So at a glance, in the middle of a conversation, you can reference the opportunity you have in the works with them. Or you can click on the Get Brand Info button that's in the snipping here. And that brand analysis is going to be able to use both some of your internal information as well as searching for knowledge on Bing to just provide additional information about that company. Maybe they have just hit a 100-year anniversary, or maybe they were just acquired by a different brand. You're going to be able to get some of that information on the fly with the Get Brand Info and brand analysis card being introduced. That's going to help in enhancing that conversation and making you come across as a more informed salesperson. The second one being questions and answers. So this allows you to be equipped with like a pre-built almost Q&A based on your internal documentations. So that way, as you are going through and having sales conversations, discovery conversations, all the questions you need to ask to make sure that you have a solution in mind are being brought up. And that all the information about the products that you sell and have to talk about on a daily basis are both accurate and something that you can get quickly and bring into the conversation very quickly without having to do outside research. So in the Q&A, you can have general product information that you can access quickly. So things like how much water can the coffee machine hold that your company makes, or how long does the phone's battery last on a single charge? Some of those things will automatically populate in the Q&A as you are going about your conversation. But it can also be questions that need to be prompted just as a part of your sales process. So maybe you want one of the Q&A questions that come up to be, what is the cost of the service overall? Or how long might integration processes take with the setup that you currently have? So it allows you to go into these conversations prepared with the other ways we've looked at, but also knowing that Copilot's going to have your back and it's going to prompt you with the questions and answers that you should be asking, just in case you forget some of them or your mind blanks out on one of the answers that you normally are able to talk about. And then the last one on here being the real-time sales tips. So just an additional feature that has also been brought in this summer that allows you to, similar to the brand info up top, get just additional information around both the call that you're currently happening, but it gives you a lot of that competitor information as well, coming from both Bing and your internal systems like CRM, if you have the available information there. And so overall, just helping with the strengthening of your conversation and making sure that you understand the market that your customer exists within.
Struggling to leverage Microsoft Enterprise solutions? At C5 Insight, we understand the intersection between technology, business, and people. Contact us to learn more.
So we'll jump into another demo here. You guys have heard me talking enough over these past couple slides. So as we've looked on the past couple, they've been all about the features you can use directly inside of the meeting to help with your sales process, to enhance your conversations that you're having with your clients and prospects, and tie that information back to your CRM records to make sure everything is syncing and being seamlessly moved throughout the different applications you use. But let's take a look at now post-meeting. So we're out of the meeting, but thankfully we turned on our transcript, so we're going to be able to access all of this information. Let's watch a demo on the different things we can see inside of the recap.
Following the call with Paige, I open the meeting recap section in Teams and am presented with a number of items. The meeting recording is provided front and center so I can rewatch parts as I need. The speakers area shows me who is talking and when, and by clicking on any area, it's going to take me to that portion of the phone call. If I've identified any topics to look for, it will highlight where they were in the call, and chapters will break down sections of longer calls. The AI Notes section is a Copilot summary taken from the transcript. It's really broken into two parts. A high-level summary of the key points. In a short call like this, there's only one, but if you click into that, it'll provide detail in the granular exchange that took place that made up that summary. The transcript is also available in case I really want to see what somebody was saying at a specific point. And finally, follow-up tasks are compiled at the bottom of the summary. These items are captured from the exchange and summarize any key actions that are needed to take place as a result of the call. Having all this information at my fingertips following the call allows me to strategically plan my next steps and ensures I don't forget key aspects of the exchange that will help as I develop a strong relationship with our soon-to-be customer.
So there we were able to see essentially everything that is listed in the bullets here. All of these are things that are at your disposal and very easy to find after the meeting, assuming you turn the transcription on. You don't need to have the full video recording if you don't want that included, but that transcription is going to allow all of these recapped items to be readily available and interactable with you post-meeting to make sure that you had everything you needed covered. But again, taking this one step further past just the summary and recap that Copilot can provide, you might have seen as the clicks were going on through the different areas of that there is a Copilot button directly in the top of that recap. And when we interact with the Copilot button here, as opposed to just looking at some of these pre-made recaps and call information, it's going to allow us to take so many of those fantastic features that we had available during the call, like the additional insight, the tasks, the competitor information, the sales information, all of these, and still take advantage of it even post-meeting, because we put in the accurate information, we turned on our transcript, we had the hygiene correct, and because of all that, Copilot is able to now, even after the meeting, keep that sales process moving and keep it all accurate for us. So let's watch how we can take advantage of that.
Now that I've had my call, I want to be sure I have a solid understanding of the needs of the customer. I can use Copilot on the right-hand side of the screen to do just that. Here, I'll ask it to summarize the key needs of the customer, and in a short moment, it provides a listing of the things that should be top of mind while I work with Paige moving forward.
Great. So very easy to see there. A lot of the features that we already covered are going to be available there. So whether it's using Copilot to help prep and pull in that sales information to do so before the meeting, so that way you can be fully informed for the conversation. Maybe it's inside of the meeting directly, where you're able to chat with Copilot and Copilot for Sales to have the best sales conversations you can in the moment, or after the fact, whether it was a meeting that was followed or just something you wanted to revisit. Copilot's going to be there every step of the way to make sure that your sales process and your sales data is not only easy to access and find, but also easy to converse with and to gain insight from in ways that you might not have done before. So in the last section of this, before we move into the roundtable and going through some Q&A, is going to be that final step in your sales process. So you had your habits in place, you went through your meeting prep, you had your sales conversations, and you landed a deal. Now, in this last section, we're going to look at two different features inside of Teams that takes that deal that you just closed and provides you a space for both internal and external collaboration with that client. So that way everything on both ends for your internal use and how you're going to be coming across to your external clients that you're working with will be uniform and organized and professional. So let's watch this demo around account teams, and then we'll look at them and the deal rooms we can set up from them.
To create the account team in Outlook, she opens her most recent email from Amy, and she opens Copilot for Sales. Since she previously tracked this communication in CRM, she can now see information from CRM within Outlook. Now she navigates down to the Collaborate in Teams section, mouses over Contoso, and clicks the Set Up Account Team button. She knows that Copilot will use the account team template to create an account team for collaborating with team members inside her organization and their customer outside their organization. She briefly reviews what the template will contain when the team is created, and then chooses Create a New Team. During the account team setup, she gets recommendations for team members to add based on the CRM account owner, members of the account team, and users the account is shared with. She's also reminded that a shared channel will be created. She knows once it's complete, she will be able to invite her internal team members and the outside customer organization team members to collaborate.
Great. So like we could see, using Copilot for Sales, starting inside of Outlook like we saw with Tracy last week, and then bridging that over into Teams like we've been talking about today, that utilizing Copilot for Sales in this space not only is keeping those records uniform across every instance that we might be communicating with that customer, but it's helping in the automation of this process as well. You might know the ability to collaborate with external people inside of Teams isn't a new idea, but using Copilot for Sales with this is making it an automated process of the setup of the teams, making sure the correct people are involved that have been in that sales conversation so far. It's also, which we'll see in the last video that we're going to watch here on the next slide, that it is going to allow you to bring in your dynamic CRM records, your OneNote notes, your opportunity summaries, all of that into one place after you set up the deal room from an account team. So think of the account team as the kind of hub for all communication with that external client. And then a deal room are individual channels that are going to be set up within that account team for the specific opportunities that you have at hand. So account team is the general, and then the deal room can be set up for each individual opportunity. So let's take a look at not the setup, because that's going to be pretty much the same as what we just watched, but we'll look at the template details so you can see all of that connectivity between all of your different sales records in one place inside of Teams, and how beneficial that can make your communication with your external clients.
Posting and discussing the opportunity through chat is not the only thing this team can now do with the new deal room. With the deal room template, a folder structure, and OneNote are created in the Customer Opportunity Deal Room channel, so that the internal team members can easily share information with external customer team members, and the external customer can do the same. For the internal team, the deal room template creates a separate area for posts, a folder structure, notes, the Dynamics opportunity record, and a CRM OneNote associated with the CRM record. This gives the internal team a place where they can easily manage internal communications and files, prior to sharing them with the external customer team members. In the externally shared opportunity customer deal room channel.
Great. So we were able to see that when using Copilot for Sales and the automation that it supports, that not only were these account and deal rooms set up, but all of the pieces we needed to encourage and continue those deals were brought into one central location for you to do your best work. And like we started this session off, hopefully reduce a lot of that time that you need to spend on a weekly basis when it comes to prep and making sure that your accounts and meetings are running effectively. So overall, as we saw, Copilot for Sales, whether it's integrated into your prep work and pre-meeting agenda building and hygiene, and ideally bringing it directly into that call, helping advance those conversations and recap tasks and everything available to make sure that all of that is being followed up on properly and brought directly into your sales records. Or after your deal's done and you're using Copilot for Sales to encourage the closing of those deals and making sure that communication is being done in an organized way in a unified platform. Copilot for Sales is there in every single step to make sure that that time's being given back to you. A lot of that busy work is taken off of you, and hopefully you can redirect that energy to make sure that the conversations you're having with the clients are the priority. So with that, I'm going to be passing it over to Haley to talk a little bit about our next steps and our roundtable.
Great, thanks so much, Jordan. That was a lot of helpful content that'll help us use Copilot throughout our workflows, but specifically for sellers, that's going to save a lot of time. Before we jump into our Q&A section, we want to share a couple opportunities that you have to engage with C5. First, if you would like a copy of the slides of this presentation, go ahead and visit c5in.co/slides and make sure to put the session name in your message, and we'll make sure to download a copy of these and send them over. Next, we wanted to share something about how you can begin introducing, implementing, and having support for Copilot in your organization, whether your leadership needs to warm up to the idea or you're actually using Copilot. We can meet you where you're at and help you move forward strategically. So if you'd like to learn more about how we can support your AI and Copilot journey, you can send us a message at c5in.co/contact. And finally, we are excited to share that C5 is delivering over 10 sessions and 4 Academy classes at Community Summit, which is the largest independent event for Microsoft Business Apps. To get a summary of our sessions and register for this event, if you haven't already, you can visit c5in.co/summit. All right, so we are going to move into our Q&A portion of today's webinar now. Just a reminder that you have a Q&A icon at the top of your screen if you want to post some thoughts, questions as we kind of jump in here. But the first thing that I wanted to ask is about referencing Copilot chat after the meeting is over. We know that we can interact with Copilot during a meeting to get insights on things that maybe we checked out and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did Jordan just say? I was not paying attention. But can I reference those chats after the meeting concludes?
That is a great question. Oh, sorry, Jordan. I was just going to say there's definitely times when I've wanted to access the Copilot chats after the meeting. And as Jordan even showed during the video recording earlier, that Copilot button in the recap, you can go in and even ask more prompts like, hey, what were the action items? What were the vibes? You know, you're able to do the Copilot chat right after the meeting ends as well, and access those just to you.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And yeah, so whether it's an example like Kaylee brought up, maybe something slipped your mind, you weren't paying attention, whatever the situation might be, or it was just a really heavy meeting, there was a lot of content covered, and you want to be able to have that fail safe to go back and check. It's going to be available for you, assuming you turned on the transcript and had those habits in place.
Yeah. Let's see. We just had a question come in about account teams. Where does the account team and deal room generated data get stored? I'm wondering if Dynamics 365 capacity is impacted.
That is a very unique question. I'll take my first stab at it. I believe it is stored in Teams. So basically you're able to see it based on your role-based access in Dynamics, but it is stored in Teams from what I understand. But I will get some documentation and respond to your Q&A shortly. I'll pass it off to my teammates in the meantime.
Thanks, Prachi.
I would say I would imagine Prachi is correct in that. The way I would think about the deal room being generated is that is all being housed in Teams. The Dynamics is going to be linked into like a tab, like a web page that can be accessed and utilized within that. But think of that as just like a new tab being added on, as opposed to being where the information is being stored. So it's being brought into Teams to utilize, but anything that's in Dynamics is staying in Dynamics, and the posts, the chats, the files that are inside of Teams are being stored where they normally would be when you're utilizing Teams for communication and file storage.
Thanks for that clarification, guys. That brings up another question about document control and security. Can you control what documents Copilot can reference across your apps?
So yes, you can. I can take this one. Typically, if something is inside of your specific Outlook and everything, usually that's where your Teams channel, it'll reference all of the productivity tools that you have access to, PowerPoints, Excels, emails, and other documentation that might be in reference to that specific opportunity. If there is something that you feel might be a bit more sensitive, please use those sensitivity labels. That will determine whether you have access to it, but also any counterparts, customers, or other people inside of your organization. As they're asking questions of their own Copilot, that will determine whether it can be used as one of the grounding data sources. So let's say I have a document, PowerPoint that I've been working on for maybe a leadership team. Maybe I'm going to put that specifically only people inside of my organization can access it, even if it's in reference to this specific opportunity or even this specific meeting. That way, if Prachi, who might not be on that specific team, asks a question that perhaps had an answer inside of that document, because of the sensitivity labels, it will not be surfaced inside of her Copilot responses. So when in doubt, make sure you're using those sensitivity labels, because the sensitivity labels will be under consideration, as well as each individual security roles. So you have essentially two pieces there that will help protect specific pieces of information and then also limit what's actually being surfaced.
Yeah, I think that's a huge concern and question people might have related to using Copilot. So making sure that those sensitivity labels are being used and knowing that Copilot is going to respect those really helps prevent any kind of mistakes from being surfaced that shouldn't be. Another thought that comes to mind under the kind of topic of security, and based on your answer, I'm guessing not, but can other people see Copilot chat in a meeting? If I'm interacting with Copilot during a meeting and I don't want Jordan to know that I wasn't paying attention, and I'm asking questions of Copilot based on the content that he's been sharing for the past 5 minutes when I checked out, can he see that?
Thankfully, you cannot. Everything within that is very much within just your visibility. So go ahead, ask it whatever crazy questions you need to in the space of that meeting, and it will be between you and your Copilot. I will say on tip and kind of funny note, make sure it is the Copilot chat and not the regular chat you're putting it in. I have been in calls where somebody thought they were dropping a question into the Copilot chat and it ended up in the general chat, and was a bit of a blunder, but as long as you're putting it appropriately, nobody else will be able to see it.
That is a very valuable tip for sure, because they look the same. Those kind of the discussions where you can post in like chats or interact with Copilot. So good reminder there. All right, so I'm not seeing any other Q&As come in. Prachi did provide a Microsoft Learn link on the Q&A that was asked previously, which you can access if you click the Q&A icon here. And for those who might be watching this recording later, I will also include this resource based on the question about account, team, and deal rooms. All right, and with that, we are going to conclude today's webinar, and we hope to see everybody next week for another Copilot for Sales webinar. So make sure that if you're interested in the slides, you can go to this link, and otherwise we hope to see you next week.